Remember. The movement that inspired a nation.
Celebrate.
The champions that knew the work wasn't finished.
Act
on the expression that promotes freedom, justice, and unity.
King's legacy of peace for our world.
He was an undisputed champion of peace and nonviolence, and when he spoke, even Jim Crow sat silent. His voice roared like thunder but put you at ease and brought segregation down to its knees. Totally undaunted and uncompromising, he was a pillar of strength that kept on rising. He was a captivating speaker, an unadulterated genius, a treasure chest of love and a cesspool of meanness. And though his life was cut short, his legacy lives on. And though the teacher isn't in, class must go on. So we're eternally thankful to the love of his life, Mrs. Coretta Scott King, his beautiful wife, for having the foresight to establish this center. A salute to greatness every time we enter.
The Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change is a unique institution dedicated to the principles and strategies of Kingian nonviolence. The King Center is the only official living memorial dedicated to the legacy, life, dreams, and works of Dr. King. Since the center was founded in 1968, we have been dedicated to preserving Dr. King's legacy of nonviolent social change, keeping his dream alive, and carrying on his unfinished work. This means reversing the culture of violence that has taken root in every corner of our world. It means meeting war, racism, homelessness, hunger, family violence, gang conflicts, poverty and deprivation, and other forms of violence with an aggressive community of love.
Love that's not unconditional or kind or weak.
As we entered into 2013, I realized that we were entering into an age of a number of 50th anniversaries around the civil rights movement that my father led. And I knew that this was the beginning of reviving, reconnecting, and re-energizing people around the work, the unfinished work of my father. And so it was important that it not just be a static remembrance, but it be a time to call people to action. August 28th, 2013, 50 years after my father delivered I Have a Dream speech, was a representation, I believe, of his beloved community. It wasn't perfect, but we wanted to ensure that we had people who represented our world as a part of that commemoration, call to action, entitled Let Freedom Ring. And so, you know, we had some young people.
I wasn't here 50 years ago, but I hope to be in the next 50 years. We all have a duty to make sure the world keeps dreaming of better things. Keep dreaming, keep dreaming, keep dreaming.
We had 3 of our 5 living presidents present, and we had invited all of them except for the senior Bush. We extended invitations to members of the Republican Party because we didn't want this to be a partisan celebration or a black celebration. We wanted this to be a humanity celebration. The 50th anniversary is really about elevating our consciousness towards being more responsible to humanity, to each other, to seeing the other as my sister or my brother, and creating the kind of environment that there's no left out, there's no least, there's no lost, there's no left off. It was important for me during the 50th anniversary of I Have a Dream to reintroduce my father's speech from the perspective of freedom. Because if you listen to the speech from beginning to end, he frames it around freedom.
The prophet king spoke the vision. He made it plain, and we must run with it in this generation. His prophetic vision and magnificent dream describe the yearning of people all over the world to have the freedom to prosper in life, which is the right to pursue one's aspirations, purpose, dreams, well-being, without oppressive, depressive, repressive practices, behaviors, laws, and conditions that diminish one's dignity and that denies one life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The freedom to participate in government, which is the right to have a voice and a say in how you are represented, regulated, and governed without threats of tyranny, disenfranchisement, exclusionary tactics and behaviors, and to have freedom to peacefully coexist, which is the right to be respected in one's selfhood, individuality, and uniqueness without fear of attack, assault, or abuse. And so today, we're gonna let freedom ring all across this nation. We're gonna let freedom ring everywhere we go.
We had over 300 separate locations registered bell ringing events in commemoration of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. And we think there may well have been another 200 who just didn't bother to register. So 500 different locations, more or less, had Let Freedom Ring bell ringing events commemorating Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. Everything from churches ringing bells to a family with handbells on their front porch. It was all over America.
So you see emerging now from different places across the nation and the world, peace campaigns, initiatives, organizations dedicated to nonviolence. In fact, in Ohio, and I applaud them for that, the governor signed legislation as a result of some young people who had an opportunity to visit some of the historic sites in the South where Daddy and them conducted the movement and were inspired to go back and do something to bring about change in their community.
This year, a bill was passed in Ohio, headed by Senator Schiavone, to hold a statewide nonviolence week, but Schiavone and others say the credit goes to the students.
If they didn't come into my office that day, this would have never occurred.
This was a student idea, working with their incredible teacher, and it now should be replicated across the country. No other state in the country has nonviolence week throughout their state.
And if people can start thinking about it, if they can start resonating with the word nonviolence, then they will begin to align themselves with better choices, because the universe then will start bringing that their way. They will end up being attracted to things that are much more nonviolent in their tone and their tenor. And so, for me, it's time to choose nonviolence, because there is no other way.
Here we go. Nonviolence, no other way. Say nonviolence, no other way. Say nonviolence, no other way. Say nonviolence, no other way. Say. Say that my brightness, my lightness is rightness, but like this, I cock this, nonviolent, I rock this, push over.
We initiated at the King Center the Nonviolence Opportunity Watch because we felt it was important to raise the awareness and the consciousness of young people toward choosing nonviolence as a lifestyle, and to make them more sensitive to incidences that may lead to violence, and know how to conduct themselves in those kind of situations, to make sure that they live their lives in such a way that they're not participants in anything that would amount to violence.
Me and the other facilitators every single morning were able to start off the day with the kids with some amazing music of today, instrumentals, and we were able to take Dr. King's philosophy and wrap it in this music just to get them excited and to bring the movement up to date. From there, we broke out into different sessions. There were kids up in the fire station, there were kids down below, and there were kids all around the King Center. It was just an amazing event. We were able to have little arguments and little conversations about why we shouldn't use violence to fix violence. And so it was amazing, guys. I could see the kids' minds shifting. And you know, as a facilitator, it's the best way to learn is to teach it.
I'm so honored to be a facilitator and a part of this camp. I'm telling you, man, the camp is amazing. We take trips to Montgomery and also Birmingham, Alabama, where we are able to go back and tour the movement areas. It's so amazing. Going to the church where the 4 little girls were bombed. Also being able to step into Dr. King's house in Montgomery, where his house was bombed when baby Yolanda was in there. It's just an amazing experience.
We've had people as far away as Cyprus come to our camp twice. The ones who came the first time were so enthusiastic. It really changed their lives. They really had an awakening experience.
Over the past 3 days, this program has changed a lot of the way of how I think about conflict in the U.S. and conflict in Cyprus. I learned not only about myself as a person, but also about history, and we gathered information, which is one of the first steps in Kingian nonviolence. And I hope to go home and to be able to further my education on that.
I want peace. But how? How can I do that? I found everything, every answer here.
Peace and nonviolence are showing up in more and more places in our society and in our world. And it's just ironic that, you know, here we are 50 years later. To me, it speaks back to what I believe is so true about Dr. King and his leadership. He showed us the best and the most excellent way to lead. Whether you're a corporate leader, you know, whether you're a teacher leading a classroom, whether you're someone who's leading a team, an athletic team, whether you're managing a department, whether you are pastoring a church, you know, whether you are leading a campaign, his leadership philosophy is instructive for all of us. And so we are being reminded. It's like when it's time for something, everything that's related to that starts showing up. And so, you know, Dr. King receiving 50 years later the Nobel Peace Prize, and we're acknowledging that and commemorating that, is no irony. And so we plan to launch this whole Choose Nonviolence campaign in the year of that 50th anniversary for the next 5 years. Because, you know, I believe when you concentrate and put a lot of energy in the atmosphere toward a certain thought or notion, then you eventually create, you know, this impact and effect, what we call a tipping point.